Okay, so this is strange because we've never played with both of our face cams on before, but it's just me and Nat here, so let's do this. Welcome to Tea&D Court of Spades campaign. I am your DM for the evening, Emily, and I also play the party's tiefling mythical beast, though he will not be participating in this evening's arc, as tonight we will be focusing on our own Jezebel Amarek's individual solo arc.
I'm Nat. I play Jezebel Amarok, Human Druid.
So, last week, I apologize for my constant throat clearing. I'm apparently a very, very dry throat right. But last week we did Marin's solo arc, which focused on him going back to see his mother before she passed away, and then with Nyx as his traveling companion, hence why Nyx will not be playing a role in this arc. Additionally, Marin reunited, well, not really reunited, met his father in person for the first time, and was escorted to Valkael, which is his father's kingdom, where he was introduced to his half-brother Erebos, who did not take kindly to having a sibling. And
to be fair,
yeah,
if I met my sister after 21 years, I also would not take kindly to a sibling.
Well, like, sometimes, you know, sometimes you get an Erebos Marin situation, sometimes you get a Loop Taco situation, like, it can go either way. Anyway, this week, obviously, like I said, we will be focusing on Jez's story. So, to clarify, all of these arcs are taking part at the same time, like this is all a parallel timeline, so while Marin is off tending to his mother and meeting his father and doing all that kind of traveling, this is what is happening with Jez simultaneous to that event. So this isn't like one by one, this is all happening at the same time, just focused on each individual character and what they're doing with this kind of undetermined amount of free time that they have now that Ace is making his way to... Oh, my dice tray is assembled backwards. Now that Ace is making his way across Althane to meet with the other heads of the kingdoms so that he can discuss a plan of action in regards to what to do about the missing queen of Grimoire. So, with that being said, we're gonna just jump right into it. Are you ready, Nat?
No.
Let's see how many notes I have for Jez. I don't think I have as many notes for Jez as Marin, but I could be wrong. 2. Okay, so I have. Yeah. I think I have one more page of notes than I did for Marin, so I have like 7 or 8 pages of notes for Jez. So
we all know who the DM's a favorite character is.
What do you mean? I just said that you have more.
Yeah, it's me.
Oh, it's you. You're right. I thought you were implying that Marin was. I was
Nope.
like, what? Maybe I'm just putting you through more hell than Marin losing his mother. Who knows? We'll find out right now because I'm gonna launch into it. So, without further ado, this is Jez's arc. It has 2 titles. The first title is Reconciliation, and the second title is A Step in the Right Direction. So, Jez, similar to Marin's beginning, you awake to a knock on your door. And assuming that Jez opens it, which I'm going to assume they do.
Safe assumption.
Yeah. You open it to find your sweet friend Jack standing there. It's not unusual that Jack is knocking on your door. You oftentimes will wake up to one another knocking on your door, especially in times like this where there's not really a designated thing that you're supposed to be doing. It's not particularly early, but it's not also midday or anything like that. This is a reasonable time that you'd all be kind of stirring and waking up. At this moment, it is the day after Ace kind of met with all of you in his office to talk about where he was going and what's going to happen now, and like requested that all of you keep your communication crystals on hand so that he could reach you when he returns. And this morning is when he is departing. So, when you open the door and see Jack, he is dressed rather elaborately, which is typical, but this time it's not in the same kind of sense as his festival attire. It's not something casual. He seems to be wearing his full formal cleric regalia. You've seen this a couple times before. Most recently, you've seen it when he summoned you to help with the resurrection of Nyx. But to kind of reintroduce you to what they look like, they are long silver robes. They have kind of elegant sleeves that go to the floor, as well as the rest of it hits the floor, and it has a long tabard down the front of it. The color of the robes are a silvery blue, kind of, they shimmer a bit when they move from one hue to the next. And there is embroidery down the front of the tabard that is representative of water to indicate his goddess Eldath. He has returned to his I'm going to call his safety hairstyle, which is 2 big beautiful braids, and on top of his head he is wearing what seems to just be a simple crown of daisies.
Like flower crown type crown?
Yeah, like a flower crown.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Cute.
The thing that does seem out of place in regards to Jack, other than the fact that he is wearing formal clothing, is the expression on his face, which is one of apprehension, as he kind of fiddles with a few rings that he has on his fingers, and doesn't quite make eye contact with you when you open the door. In fact, he seems a bit flustered when you open the door, as if he's struggling to collect his thoughts. Good morning, Jess. How are you?
I just woke up, so life is seeming pretty good right now. I'm going to make the assumption that things are not quite as good for you. What's up, friend?
Well, obviously with everything that happened last night, things are a bit, worrisome and tense. And I've realized that with everything that happened last night, it may be a bit inappropriate for me to ask this, but I was hoping perhaps that you'd want to travel with me to Elder's Bane. With the Gaealia festival, that is. Typically, in prior years, Ace has escorted me, but, that's out of the question. With good reason, of course. I'm not blaming him, it's just, I haven't been very comfortable traveling by myself in a while, and if you can't, I understand. Yesterday was very troubling for a lot of us, but, you're one of my best friends, and I was thinking maybe you'd be interested in seeing the temple and participating in the Dusk Reckoning. If that interests you at all.
I don't know why you were so nervous to ask. I would do anything for you, Jack. You're one of my best friends.
He smiles and you see like a light blush cross his cheeks, and he looks up at you with a smile, and he's like, I just thought it was to like go to the festival with me after, all of the dire news that we received yesterday and kind of the freak out that was going on. I could kind of hear it from outside of his office, but anyway, if you're sure, then you probably don't need to pack a lot. It's similar to the festival that happened in Grimoire, where it's a 2-day event. It's not a 3-day event, because the 3rd day was kind of a Grimoire thing with the Queen's Gala and all that. But it will take us about 5 days to travel to Elder's Bane with the caravan, so just pack enough for that. And I'll gather my things as well. But yeah, if you'd like, we'd have to leave soon because the caravan is packing up in town square and we'll be heading out today.
Then I think you'd best get started. You generally take longer to pack than I do.
Yeah, you're right. I did get a bit of a head start tomorrow so that I wouldn't take forever, so just knock when you're ready.
Yeah.
On my door. Yeah. Okay. and he seems kind of pleased and scutters off to pack his own belongings.
One perfect boy. The only perfect boy.
Hey, as an owner of many boys in this campaign, ow. I'm offended. Also, your entire party. Anyway.
They're good boys, they're just not perfect.
As someone who knows Al Chesterfield, how dare you?
You're right. I'm wrong. I'm sorry. I take it all back.
Apologize. This is the omnipotent Nick presence. Anyway, so you are packing your belongings. What do you bring for this kind of trip to Elder's Bane? To kind of refresh your memory, I know it's kind of obvious, but Elder's Bane, I've mentioned before, is the kingdom where like magic is basically held for the most part. Like in a sense that like wizards go there to study magic, bards are sent there to go to bard college, quote unquote, and study their forms of magic. It's where most magical artifacts and stuff are sold, and it's just kind of a way to contain how many people have access to the power of certain magical artifacts. It is also the reason that like Ace initially sent the Revenant Ruby, because it, like, out of everywhere in Althane, it is one of the most well protected places, and one of the most powerful places in Althane. So, with the exception, I would say, of the Evermore, which is a completely different kind of powerful. So, this is very much an organized power. So what do you bring in preparation for this journey? You'll be traveling on a caravan, so you'll be kind of, for the most part of the journey, you'll be confined to a cart. Think like very Oregon Trail-esque, like line of wagons and such being towed across the path in between the two kingdoms. But once you get there, you'll have a little bit of freedom to do what you want. So go ahead and tell me what kind of things Jez packs.
Probably. Jez is not a particularly frivolous person. But probably does pack that fancy robe that they got at the festival several days ago. Because it's cool. I don't know, is there any, like, I'm just out here like normal stuff, you know? Definitely brings some of their fancy rune stones. Probably like both their weapons, all two of them. I don't imagine that it would be much different than what they would take with them for one of their excursions, except maybe minus like food. I'm assuming that there's provided stuff.
Kind of like a collective rations. I mean, you're traveling with a bunch of farmers, so they have plenty of produce and homemade stuff to go around.
So I don't imagine that it's too much different, and I will not bore you with every single piece of contents of Jez's backpack.
I'm mostly curious, so we've discussed previously, and I think you may have mentioned it in at least one episode, but maybe not. Jez has like an altar for their god.
Yes.
Do they take anything from the altar, or do they stop at the altar before they leave?
So I imagine that the rune stones that they got from the lady have taken a place on that altar. So as I said, those come along, and I think they probably have like I'm thinking not quite Altoid's an Altoid's tin altar setup, but something like that it's kind of compact and it has like the very barest necessities.
So it's like an altar to go type thing.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I think I might have
like some tufts of animal fur in there.
Yeah.
So I mean, we'll say instead of like an Altoid's tin, it's like a small like wooden box that they kind of keep stuff in.
Yeah, I'm thinking like the box that I got from You know the box that I got from Five Wits with the
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that I keep all
Like
my
a little
dice in
latch.
now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like the kind of that size. That's got enough space for maybe a couple of short candles and, you know, not incense, like sage or something like that, and small bits and pieces of things that they can pick up along the way. The nice part is that for the most part, if they really need something, they can probably go find it, just disappear into a forest for a while and come back with it.
Mm-hmm. Oh shoot, I have to pull up something I haven't had to pull up in a while, which is the map of Alphane. Do I have it in the resource thing? I do! Because I have to remember the name of the road that you take. Okay, because there's 2 roads, because you actually, I never labeled it. It's part of Widower's Way. It's fine. The map looks different than I remember it, but it's fine. Doesn't know my own kingdom layout. It's cool. When Jez goes to approach their altar, we'll say that this is like one of the last things that they go to pack, because everything else is pretty simple. They just toss their clothes in a bag, grab a few, maybe like
deodorant, you know.
You know, the toiletries that they had back there in Fantasyland. Maybe like scraps of paper and ink or something, just in case they need to take notes or write something down or transcribe something. When they turn to gather stuff from their altar, they notice at first there seems to be what I like. Describe this altar for me, because I think when we discussed it, it was kind of in like almost like a cabinet or like a closet where there's like a door that hides it, right? Like you can kind of put it away.
Yeah, I think it's probably in, I think you're right, probably like a wardrobe type situation where, you know the wardrobes that have like hanging space on one side and then there's the drawers on the other? Or like on part of it for you to keep like your shoes and stuff like that? Okay. They've like taken the bottom drawer of whatever that is, because it's usually the largest, and like created a false front, and they still have the drawer, actual drawer somewhere, but they basically made it like a something that you can push in and pull out, and then it's just the space with nothing in it. And it's got like very small candles and a couple of dishes for burning things, different dishes for different things, of course. Can't go mixing your animal parts and plant parts.
Can't do that.
No. And though I'm just gonna come straight out and say, like, the wood in this, like on the bottom of this, is just stained to hell. Like, these are never coming out type of stains.
Ugh, good. Nasty, but good.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's just like, probably actually all around the side is like things that are drawn in charcoal or in assumedly blood. Probably some scorch marks, because candles in a small space would probably do that. Yeah. But there's kind of like, it's very neat, very laid. Like, you can tell that everything has its place.
Yeah, it's very intentional. It's not just like a clutter drawer at this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody who found it would literally look at it and just be like, this is an altar. There's no point that you can just be like, oh, you just have a weird hobby drawer. Like,
yeah. Decades from now, when Jez has died in some horrible battle and they're cleaning out their room for the next one, they'll find it and be like, oh, this was a creepy altar.
Yeah.
And then they'll be cursed by some dark magic that's just manifested there by chance. Spoilers. I'm kidding. So as they go to open this altar and kind of collect the few things that they want to take from it, they notice at first that it seems almost as if this false front that they've created, there seems to be like frost clinging to the edge of it. And as they kind of go to reach, the second that they blink as they reach towards it, the frost is gone. But they feel a chill kind of run down their spine. And it passes. And you collect your things.
It's probably one of those moments where you're like looking over your shoulder like, is anybody okay?
Did anyone else see that? No, I'm alone? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so, if that's all that you are gathering, then you are welcome to, I'll just kind of say that Jez takes all their belongings, exits their room, and goes to knock on Jack's door, to which Jack promptly responds, and for the first time maybe ever, is actually ready to go when Jez knocks. Though that doesn't take away from the fact that he's definitely hauling at least 3 suitcases. Or trunks, or whatever fantasy version of suitcase. We'll just call them suitcases.
Yeah, suitcases, it's fine. Stop the presses, you're ready on time.
Don't make fun of me. Because I'm always the one who has the things when you forget them, so... You'll be grateful for me.
I am always grateful for you. Do you want me to take one of those, though?
If you don't mind, you can take... I'll feel bad if you take one of the heavier ones, so if you could take my duffel bag, it has, my accessories.
Yeah. And just like, grabs it, tosses it over her shoulder, or however.
Oh, please be careful. Please.
Yeah, come on.
Okay.
You can't be late.
You guys begin exiting down the hall. As I've kind of mentioned before, there's a hallway with all the dorms in it, and then there's a staircase that leads downwards, and when that staircase goes downwards, there is another hallway that kind of goes back behind the staircase, and then there is a right turn and a left turn. The left turn leads into the like main chamber where like you guys eat breakfast, you guys hold meetings, like that, basically the biggest chamber in this underground fortress. And then if you make a right turn after you like descend the stairs, it's literally just like a very short hallway, and it's Ace's office. So as you guys come down these stairs, you almost bump directly into Ace as he's hurrying on his way out. And you like kind of stop. Jack kind of like nearly stumbles over the weight that he's carrying. And Ace kind of looks over at the two of you surprised, and he goes, "Oh, right, Jack, you going to Elder Spain still?" And Jack is like, yeah, if we talked about it before, if it's still okay. I know that some things have changed." And Ace kind of like waves his hand, and he's like, "No, it's fine. I understand what it means to you to go to Elder Spain, so it's totally fine. Are you taking Jez with you then, since I'm, well, otherwise engaged?" And Jack just kind of nods. And looks over Ace, and he's, he kind of puts like down his things and walks up to Ace and is like, Ace, I... Travel safely, and come back soon. I wish you all the best on your travels. If you need anything, you know how to contact me. You know I will be there for you if you need me to. And Ace puts down the bag that he's carrying and embraces Jack, to which Jack embraces him back. And Jack seems to like hold him pretty tightly. And as they pull out of the embrace, Ace kind of takes one of Jack's braids in his hand and affectionately smiles at him and is like, "You look lovely as always, Jack." And Jack, you see a small blush cross his face again, and he backs to take his bags. Ace turns his attention to Jez for a moment, and he, for the first time in like a little while, because recently Ace has been a bit more timid and vulnerable around the court, as he has been more candid about himself and his fears and like kind of who he really is. But now as he kind of looks at Jez, you recognize this expression of himself again. Himself meaning the person that Jez met, the person that he is usually being when he is doing something for the court. He's kind of got that like seriousness to him, but also as he looks at Jez, he even manages to cock a small smirk as he looks at Jez and gives them a small salute with his fingers and says, "Now, don't miss me too much."
Hardly.
His smirk kind of soft to genuine smile before he nods and proceeds out the hallway, leaving you both to your business as he begins his departure. He doesn't leave out the front way, which you guys are going to be. He leaves down the hallway that I mentioned that goes past the stairwell, which with as long as Jez has been with the court, they have learned that like at the end of that hallway past where like the kitchen is and some other random rooms for like Athena and David and stuff like that, the end of that hallway does have a corridor that leads directly to the castle that kind of travels underground, so you can easily deduce that Ace is traveling towards the castle, where he'll be joining his traveling party. So Jack kind of looks at you and is like, well, I'm ready then if you're ready to go. I have everything.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay.
I don't think I don't see you.
What do you... I don't know what you're talking about.
Don't you?
I don't. I was saying goodbye to Ace, and that is all that interaction was. I don't know what you're saying. And he kind of looks at you for a moment, and let me. No, he has no idea what you mean.
Okay.
He's like, I really don't know what you're talking about, but okay. And he kind of fumbles with his bags as he leads you out the normal entrance way that you guys typically depart through. So you guys exit through the inn. As usual, that guy is standing at the bar, unchanged. Doesn't
there.
really acknowledge when you leave.
Same glass.
Same glass. Actually, a different glass. We decided. Remember, he gave the glass he was polishing to Marin that one time.
That's right.
So it is a different glass, but still not dirty. So no reason to be cleaning it. Jack leads you out through the inn, and you guys make your way back to the center of town where the caravan has... It's completely different than how it was 2 nights ago when it was completely decked out and full of people. Um, a lot of the decorations that were hung up at this point have either been taken down or they're just kind of hanging loosely from trees and like lampposts and stuff like that. And all of the caravans that had their big shops and displays set up are all packed up and nearly ready to go.
Yeah.
And so Jack leads you through this kind of think of it almost as like how a trailer park is set up when a bunch of like vehicles are all in one area.
Mm-hmm.
So he's kind of navigating you through this like mini caravan town. And you reach a decent sized cart that is very like traditional covered wagon type cart.
Mm-hmm.
It is covered with a burgundy covered blanket that has a few patches that have been sewn up with dark purple patches. And it doesn't seem to have any kind of real indication of what the business is or who owns it.
Mm-hmm.
But as you approach this cart, Jack kind of clears his throat and goes, Belle? Belle, are you there? And as soon as he says the word Belle, you see the head of a tabby cat poke out of the back of this caravan. She is this is a very large tabby cat. This is a tabaxi woman. She seems to be a bit. She's definitely elderly. Like you can tell by her fur that is kind of. It's dull and it has streaks of gray going through it. But she is a brown tabby cat-esque tabaxi woman. With dark green eyes, and she is wearing what seems to be a similar style garb that Jack is wearing, but it is a bit less flashy. It is a matte green,
Mm-hmm.
and the only indication of anything there's a very small detailing embroidery around the bottom of leaves.
Mm-hmm.
But the only there's not really an obvious symbol other than the fact that she is wearing an acorn necklace around her neck. And she seems to kind of blink a little as her eyes adjust to the daylight that is now peeking out over the tops of the buildings around them.
Mm-hmm.
And her ears kind of perk up when I just smacked my desk when she sees Jack. And she goes, oh god, I need to think of an accent for her. Let's go with something a little like this. Jack, it is so good to see you. And
I love her.
she kind of like climbs down from her cart. She seems to be a bit like hunched over a little from her age. And you see another younger looking brown tabby cat poke their head out after her and extends a cane out to her and goes, ma'am, please be careful. you don't normally move this fast in the morning. And she kind of just like waves him off, and he looks up and smiles upon seeing Jack and goes, Jack, it's so good to see you. Will you be traveling with us again this year? And Jack smiles and nods as he reaches out and greets Belle, the woman that he has called Belle, with a warm hug. And she kind of pats him on the cheek and goes, who is your friend? I have never seen this one before. Where is the loud one with the red hair?
This is a good way to describe him.
Jack kind of looks a little bashful and turns to kind of gesture to Jez and is like, this is my friend Jezebel. Ace can't travel with me this year, so they've offered to fill in his place. Jez, this is ringing of the bells, or bell for short.
Jez. I'm trying to figure out what the proper greeting for this would be. Probably offers like not an extra bow, but definitely like a bow. Like
They bow.
Yeah, just like not like super long or anything. Just like hey.
Belle kind of chuckles and is like, "Oh, she's bowing to me as if I am some kind of royalty." They
All ladies are worth it. All ladies are queens.
All women are queens.
There we go. That's what it is. I just.
If she breathes, she's a thought.
All women are queens.
I like this one. This one is much more polite than that other one that you bring every year. It is a pleasure to meet you, Jezebel. As this one says, you can just call me Belle. Ringing of the bells is such a mouthful.
I appreciate that.
Then this is my apprentice. This is Blossoms in Spring, but you can call him Blossom. And Blossom kind of waves to you, seemingly very like friendly and open to meeting new people.
I love them both.
It's nice to meet you, ma'am. Friend. I don't know why I've suddenly fucking threw that out the window. It's nice to meet you, friend. Ma'am, we should probably get going if we're gonna keep up with the rest of the caravan. And as you notice, the other kind of carts around you have started to move forward and are forming kind of the traveling party that you will all be a part of as you travel to Elder's Bane. So, Belle kind of, she's like, oh, these young people are always in such a rush to get somewhere. Elder's Bane isn't going anywhere. They will wait for us. There is no ceremony without us. And Blossom is just like, yes, yes. And as he's listening to Belle kind of like ramble about Elders, like the rush that everyone's in, he's like putting away a bunch of like other little things that have just been kind of like put around the cavern. He's like unblocking the wheels so that they can start moving. And he's tethering their single horse up to the front of, or not single, there's two horses to the front of this caravan. He's like, if all of you would just climb in the back with ma'am, I will be driving the cart, so I'll probably speak with you unless someone wants to sit up there with me, but there's not a lot of room, so I understand. I'm sure I'll be able to talk with you more when we stop for a break. Ma'am, do you need help? Hold on. He kind of puts this like stool at the foot of the back of the caravan and helps Belle climb back into the back of. Sorry, I got distracted because I heard a dog outside my apartment. Puts a stool at the bottom of this caravan and helps Belle back into the back. And he also extends his reach to help load Jack's belongings and your belongings into the back of the caravan. And after all of you are loaded up, he kind of gives you a little wave and disappears to the front. There's like a curtain that kind of, you can't really see him when he's driving. But you all climb into the back of the caravan and you hear him kind of click at the horses and you start moving with the rest of this traveling party.
On the road again. Just can't wait to be on the road again. Anyway.
Okay, let's see. Where am I? Okay. You also, just as a note about Blossom, he is wearing the same kind of garb as Belle is. So it's a very plain type tunic, and he's also wearing the acorn necklace. There's not really a difference between their two attires, so you can definitely tell that he is studying under her.
Mm-hmm.
And she settles in and is suddenly like, there's like a small kind of, I want to say like a propane stove in the back of this.
Camping
but,
stove!
Like, yeah, like a camping stove, but like a magic equivalent of a camping stove. She like lights it with like a sacred flame.
That seems like a little bit overkill for her.
Yeah.
But okay, Emily.
I don't know enough about cleric spells offhand.
Anyway, she lights us a fire in the back of her wooden carriage.
It's not on like the ground. That's what I mean. It's like on a small elevated surface, and she starts boiling water for what seems to be tea, because it's in like a kettle. There's also a flap kind of at the top of this caravan that is open to ensure that it's not like all this heat isn't like getting captured in this tent. And also the back is completely open, so it's well ventilated.
Yes.
She starts boiling tea and she's like, I am sure that you like tea probably, right? I've never met a young person who didn't like some kind of tea.
I have never met a tea I haven't liked, so you are, madam, once again correct.
Well, that is very good because I have some very special blends from my shop back in Oromir. It will be a few minutes though, so why don't you tell me about yourself while we are waiting for the water to boil?
With pleasure. What would you like to know though? This is...
Well...
a lot of there are 23... crap, I don't know my own character's age. I was right. There are 23 years to cover, and I hardly think that all of it is interesting.
I am not asking for your life story, do not worry, but I don't think I will last long enough to listen to all of that, but... Oh, why don't we start with, I don't know, are you a cleric of some kind, like Jack is? Actually, wait, I'm retconning that. She calls him Cecil.
Right, because that's his fake name. His train name.
Are you a cleric like Cecil is?
No, I am just a friend from town. God, have we ever discussed, actually? I assume there would have been some sort of discussion of, like, corroborating stories to some degree.
Well, for this situation, Cecil Belmont is just like a practicing, basically like think almost missionary type thing, where like he kind of like, as far as Belle knows, he lives in like a small home in town and just kind of does like missionary work, like spreads the word of his deity and helps people out and like raises money for the temple and stuff like that, because every cleric in Althane pays like basically a due to the temple in order to kind of keep it operating, because it is the only really public place where people can like be in a place that is designated holy ground, essentially. So it doesn't have a specific deity or anything like that. It's just a place for clerics to kind of gather and be in a place that is supposedly more connected to gods and magic, like basically like cleric studies and stuff like that.
Okay.
But
good to know.
So as far as Belle knows, Cecil is just like a missionary that lives in town. And you can very easily kind of claim that like you've met Cecil
neighbors
through your neighbors, or you've met him through like missionary work or something, or like helped him somehow.
Okay, cool.
He doesn't like, she's not really digging into like how you met Cecil or
No,
Jack
it's
or anything like that. She's
just
just kind
I
of
don't
like,
actually know what.
yeah.
I don't know
I
what
mean,
everybody's alternate life is.
You can be as vague as you want.
Yeah.
With these characters because she's old and doesn't really care.
Good.
Like she does, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. So yeah, we are neighbors. I may have once accidentally smushed part of the fence between our house, which was... I was being stupid. I was trying to go a tree, and then the tree was in the wrong place, and the fence happened to be where the tree was.
You were trying to climb a tree?
No, my family lives in a different part of the country, so I was going to make a tree, and I'm a druid.
That makes a lot more sense. I was going to ask because I can tell by just kind of what you carry on you that you are some kind of practicer of magic.
Yeah, it's not much. I like what I do, but I am not
very good at it seems.
Look, I am good at some things and not others. Trees are not really my forte.
Well, I'm sure that Jack did not. I keep saying Jack. I'm sure that Cecil did not mind. He's a very forgiving type. And she kind of raises a cat eyebrow at Jack, who laughs a little bit. And he's like, I better be considering the way that we met, Belle. And she just kind of goes, we don't have to talk about that right now. It's let's see. I have chamomile tea with mint. And she kind of makes you, she starts digging through like this little pouch that she has, and she brings out a small packet of like loose leaf tea, and she begins steeping it in this pot of hot water. It starts to smell like kind of mint and lavender. It smells very lovely. So what, other than traveling with Jack, are you looking for anything in Eldersbane in particular? I said Jack. If I ever say Jack, I mean Cecil.
Yeah, no, I got you. Would Jess be looking for anything in Eldersbane? There's probably gotta be some sort of something that can go along with their whole thing that they can get there.
Are they gonna tell Belle about that?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
I might try and do a little bit of window shopping. I am a little bit light on coin at the moment. A false statement. And I would hate to have to... I already have to carry one of this one's bags, and kind of like nudges Jack in the side. I hardly think getting another bag for myself would make traveling home any easier.
I made a mistake and took a big bite of pizza. Hold on. I was just trying to finish it.
You're good.
Jack and Belle both laugh. And Belle kind of shrugs and is like, why do you think I bring this entire caravan? It's to carry his things to Eldersbane every year. And Jack kind of gives her a look like, you know that's not true.
We both know it's true.
As you say this, you kind of hit a small bump in the road, and one of Jack's like bags kind of shifts, and he goes, and he kind of shifts it back to a position that's more stable and ties it off, and is like, I hate when things happen like that. Belle pours you a cup of tea and also pours herself and Jack some. And kind of sips it, meaning slowly looking out at the back of the caravan to some of the other carts that are following behind. And you look out with her and can see that already you guys are getting to the edge of Grimoire. This is a place that you definitely haven't frequented often because it's the direction towards Elder's Bane. You guys are going to be traveling kind of along the foothills of the Ironforge mountain range, and then you're going to diverge into Widower's Way, which is the long path that leads to Elder's Bane. So she kind of settles in and just stares out the back and goes, well, I am hoping again this year to really show Blossom what it means to connect with a deity and be in a place where you can just... Elder's Bane is something else. Have you been there before?
I don't think I have. Am I correct?
I don't think you have.
Okay, good. No, this will be the first time I've been.
That's so exciting. You said you were a druid. What kind of circle do you come from?
I am from the North Arctic, one of the Arctic circles.
Okay, I'm not too familiar with those kind of deities, but I am a practicer of I do worship a nature god as well, so perhaps it's Arctic, but perhaps you have heard of I think it's pronounced Sylvanus. I might be pronouncing that wrong. Purists don't come from me. Artistic license. It's Sylvanus in this world. More specifically, I have like the actual kind of identification for. Actually, do you want to make a religion check to see if Jez has heard of Sylvanus?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Let's do this.
Go for it.
Oh boy. Nope.
What'd you roll?
1 plus 2, and that is a 3.
You crit failed.
Did.
Belle says, perhaps you have heard of Sylvanus, and you say Gesundheit.
Bless you. Oh.
Bless you, child, but he is the more commonly known as the Forest Father, basically one that is very close with nature. I have lived in Oromir for many years after I left Elder's Bane, and well, it is just, you know, that is where I met Cecil. And I'm gonna get it right soon. That is where I met Cecil, and it is just, he can vouch for it. It is very nice out there. I will always say how surprised I was when he left, because Oromir is one of the few places of nature truly left untouched by a lot of the ruins that have turned the Evermore into what it is today.
Then I look forward to seeing it and experiencing it through your eyes. This is...
You are coming to Oromir?
Oh, I'm sorry, Oromir, not Eldersbane. Well...
Nope.
I'm done.
You're good. One day I'll get you guys to recognize the difference between the 4 kingdoms that I have canonically established with names.
Look, I'll make it my phone background. I'll get it eventually.
Just like you do for a test.
Then maybe someday I'll be able to take a trip out and see.
Absolutely. If you are still connected to your circle and your druidic roots, which it seems like you are in some ways, obviously, you might need to brush up a little bit. Oromir would be the perfect place for you to do that. It is what the parts that are not touched and cultivated by the farmers are just wide open grass plains and forests. It is very lovely. There are lakes and ponds. There's a little bit of swamp, if that's what you're into.
Sounds positively delightful, Belle.
It is. It is positively delightful. Well, I am going to take a nap. She says as she finishes her tea, and Jack is like, Didn't you just wake up? Didn't Blossom just wake you up? And Bella's like, yes, but this was a lot of commotion for the morning, and I have to be the one to drive the cart during the night when Blossom is asleep, so I'm going to store up my energy for that. And take a nice little cat nap, if you will. Jack kind of rolls his eyes but smiles. Well, don't let us disturb you. Not that I'm certain we could with the way that you sleep. And she kind of grumbles, not in like a bad way, but she just kind of settles into this like pile of quilts that she seems to have in the corner and is quickly passed out, having extinguished the flame for her tea, but there's still some tea left if you guys want to help yourself to more. You guys kind of sit in a little bit of silence, and I'm gonna say like you travel for a while, kind of just chit-chatting, and the day passes by pretty quickly, the first day of travel. It reaches a point where Blossom exchanges his position with Belle, but he doesn't get to really talk to you two as much because he is clearly exhausted from driving the car all day. So he curls up in the pile of quilts and knocks out pretty quickly. And as you guys are kind of like being swayed by the cart into this almost dreamy, tired state, outside the moon is fairly bright, leading the way of the caravan. But you can't really hear much around you other than the sounds of horse hooves hitting the path beneath their feet. And Jack clears his throat and after a little period of silence looks back at you and is like, Jess, can I ask you something? His voice is kept low as to not disturb Blossom as he sleeps, but
you already have, my friend, but ask away.
what did you mean earlier with Ace? And also, why? I don't know, it seems like you don't really like being around him anymore. So I guess I just want, and we're wondering why that is.
Well, he told us a bit about his history. I think Jack knows. Does Jack know? Actually, we're gonna just roll. We're gonna roll with this, and if I fuck it up, well, Jack's gonna know too.
Go for it.
He told us a bit about his history, and it was. Several decades longer than I thought, and certainly enlightening.
He told you about fighting in the war, stuff like that.
Fighting in the war, yes. Dying in the war, yes. Something about being brought back from death. He is a coward. And a bit of a hypocrite,
Jack seems to frown when you say that. And he shakes his head a little, and it's like, Ace is a lot of things, Jess, but he's not a coward. No matter what he says about himself. As you probably know, he's very convincing. And, well, he's been calling himself that for so long, I think he's convinced himself of it. So, it's not hard for him to convince others of it.
This is not something he said. This is how he acts.
What do you mean by hypocrite?
He how to say this? He fights in this great war, yes, that he is the only one who survives. He is brought back and has, it seems, the power to I don't know. He pretends to have the power to change history and the future and fate of the continent. This is not his place. He plays at being a god that he is not, and expects everyone to follow him to the letter. He sends us, and kind of like makes a gesture of indicating more like the party and not like he sends us to do his dirty work while he stays inside and cuddles up with the royalty and the fine class. This is not heroic. This is not... Humans cannot be God. And yet, this is what he tries to do. It is not his right to change what people remember. And this is what he has done. It is not right to send others to their deaths when he himself ran from it. And yet, people have died for him. This is what I mean when I say he is a coward and a hypocrite.
He seems to kind of mull over your words for a little bit. His eyebrows are furrowed, and he seems to be not satisfied, I guess, with Jez's answer. And he sighs and kind of looks out the back kind of wistfully. Jez, there is the saying that history is tenders, and obviously that saying is not entirely applicable to this, but there is a point in that of a bias. And it's interesting to me that you talk about, I suppose, not trusting Ace because of who he is as a person, yet you seem to have trusted every word he's told you about his past and taken it quite literally. He is telling the events through his own eyes, through his own perspective. So obviously there's going to be that bias where when he told me of it, I felt similar. I felt like he couldn't possibly be the same person that I thought he was. But then I took the time to think about his purpose, his motivation, what he told me about himself, and I realized that there has to be more to the story than what he thinks happened. He only saw what he saw, and he only knows what he did, and he labeled what he did with what he felt about his actions, if that makes sense. It's like I said, it's a bias. It's one perspective. He thinks he was cowardly, and so that is what he seems to be when he tells that story. Now, I can't contest it. I wasn't there. But the Ace that I know and the Ace that I've grown with is one of the most selfless people I know. I never really told you how I joined the court, did I?
It's not my place to pry.
He kind of glances at Blossom and keeps his voice low, making sure that after checking to make sure that Blossom is not alert in any kind of way, which he's not. You can tell by the fact that his tongue is kind of sticking out as he lays sprawled out on these quilts. And a light snoring emits from his mouth. When I was young, my parents sent me to the temple to study and to become a loyal follower of their deity. But they were worshipping Corellin, which, if you're not familiar, he is the elven deity. Obviously, my family were elven, and we came from a tight-knit community of other elven kind. It just kind of comes with the territory. And they wanted me to be this high priestess and come back to them just as devout as the rest of them were. But when I got there and I started to study under my mentor, she treated others a way that I didn't understand, and the more I studied under her, the more I started to realize that worshipping Corellin and staying loyal to this small band of people, whether or not they're my family, was exclusive. It excluded people. And the more I studied under her, the more I realized that I don't think that's what it means to be a worshipper, to be someone who celebrates a deity. I don't think that the goal should be to just build up the community that already exists. To me, being a cleric means spreading the message and the intents of your deity to others. At least that's my connection with my deity. So I realized that I wanted to change, and then I met Belle. She was younger, but she was teaching at the temple at the time. And she's the one who introduced me to the nature deities. And that's where I found Eldath, in one of the texts in the library, and it was... I finally felt like I could connect to a belief system, to a deity and their intentions for the world and their message for followers. She was one of kindness towards everyone, whether they be human or elven or humanoid of any kind, or just plants and animals. It was a universal type of kindness. And that is the kind of thing that I wanted to practice. And while I was studying under Belle, I realized some things about myself as well, and I changed, and I became Cecil. And that's when my parents cut ties with me. They thought what I was doing was blasphemous, turning my back on Corellin and remaking my identity. They thought I was betraying them, which I can understand why they would think that, I suppose. But after that, I didn't really have a home, so I started to wander for a while, and I used to travel a lot more. And I went to Oromir with Belle because that's where she was setting up her shop. And while I was there, I really surrounded myself with the beauty of nature and forgave myself for my choices. Unfortunately, while I was there, a fire broke out, and they never really discovered why, but it engulfed hundreds of acres of land, people's homes, people's farms, their livelihoods up in flames. It was devastating, and well, I was there, and I did everything I could to help. And I came across this barn that belonged to a family that I had helped once. I had helped heal their daughter when she had broken a leg falling off one of the horses, and in return they had given me a place to stay for the night and warm food. So when I came to their barn and saw that it was up in flames, I could hear inside the horses, and they sounded so scared. I don't know what I was thinking, but I ran inside to try and free them. And the building gave out overhead of me. It was stupid to prioritize horses over myself, I suppose, but when I woke up, I was in an infirmary bed, covered in burns and blisters, and I could barely move. And this man was sitting in the corner of the room, and he looked no better than I did, but for some reason he was apparently sitting vigil by my bedside, and when I turned to greet him, my lungs were so full of smoke, I suppose, that I just kind of croaked and broke into a coughing fit, and it woke him up, and that's when I met Base. And he asked me why I had run into the barn after the horses, and the only thing I could really say was, who am I to decide that my life is more valuable than theirs? And he just kind of laughed at me. Not at me, but at the notion of what I had done, and looking back on it, I realized how ridiculous it was, but he saw something in me that day that I could only think of as idiocy, and where I saw stupidity he saw heroism and bravery. And that's when he extended the offer to join him at the court. And that's where I've been ever since. And I can't explain how grateful I am to have a place that I can call home and belong to and feel like a part of a family again. It's somewhere where I get to do exactly what I've always wanted to do, which is protect those around me. And he's never asked anything of me that I didn't want to do. I know that it seems like you've signed your life away to some crazy man's plot to redeem himself, but it's not that he wants to change history. It's that he wants to make the future a brighter place, a safer place, so that history doesn't repeat itself. I hope you can understand that, at least.
I think I understand the sentiment, but I think that recent events have proven that wrong. History is repeating itself, and he has tried to stop that from coming to light again. And yet, he is off looking for a queen who has gone missing because an old enemy has escaped the prison. This is... I appreciate what he has done for you. You are, I think, the closest thing I have had to a sibling since I come from home. But, as I said, this is not... It's not... The past is the past. You should be able to learn about it no matter what. The history is important. That is how... This is how I grew up. You pass down the stories of your ancestors, and you pass down life lessons. This is important for people to know. And he has removed a valuable lesson from the continent because you say he is ashamed of himself.
I don't quite understand why you were choosing to blame Ace entirely for what the people of Althane know about the past, as it was not his decision alone to hide some of the history. Just because he was there doesn't mean he has a right to spread that information. He is at the will of those who rule over Althane, whether it seems like it or not. And it was decided long before any of us came along that certain secrets would remain hidden so that what is happening now would not be as easy to accomplish as it would be if people knew about the uprising. It's difficult to explain, but I understand where you're coming from with the tradition of passing down knowledge, whether it is learning from mistakes or learning from experience. But when it comes to the knowledge of a power, there are always going to be people who want to know more about that power. And planting that seed is what can grow. It can be the root of an evil that can get out of control very quickly. So the information that he's helped kept hidden was, well, I think what's happening now would have happened a long time ago if they had not hidden it away for so long. Somebody went to extreme lengths to figure out what the Revenant Ruby is, and where it was being kept, and what it could mean. But that's exactly what they had to do. They had to go to extreme lengths. It wasn't something as easy as opening up a history book and reading about it. But I know I can't change your mind. You can be a little stubborn when you want to be, so I just hope I just wanted to give my 2 cents and hope that you realize that you should take things that Ace says with a grain of salt, and I'm not just talking about telling the truth or telling lies. I'm talking about what he says about himself and the past that he's come from, because it's just one side of the story.
You are, as usual, correct.
He yawns and he's kind of like, I know.
Sorry.
You were right to laugh. He kind of pulls a blanket over himself that he has pulled from one of his bags and looks at you and goes, did you pack a blanket, Jess?
Yes.
Okay. He laughs a little and goes, good. I think it's best if we get a little bit of sleep.
Puddle! Yeah, they probably settle in to wherever Jez is. Definitely cuddling with Jack, because that's just what they do.
It's totally fine. Jack is expecting it.
Good. But once they're settled, there's probably like a second of silence, and just I'll parse it all out in my head eventually, and things will go back to normal, Jack.
Jack doesn't really respond, but you kind of see his face shift into like a smile. But yeah, he remains silent as he kind of dozes off.
Sleep, sleep, sleep.
Sleep, and then you guys sleep for the next 4 days.
You know, I really wish I could do that.
Me too. But yeah, that is the rest of your travel is rather uneventful. You get to know Belle and Blossom a little better, but not much goes on other than that. You guys pull up to Elder's Bane, and this is the first time you've seen Elder's Bane, so let me describe it. It is surrounded by, similar to how Grimoire is surrounded by a large kind of wall to the city, it is also surrounded by a wall, although it is much taller and very imposing when you see it. It's made of a dark, almost like, I want to say it kind of looks like it's made out of black obsidian almost. And the only entrance is a thick iron gate that is heavily, there are multiple bolts and stuff keeping people out of it. And your caravan pulls up to it and is easily granted access as they were expecting you all to arrive. As you travel through Eldersane, you kind of stick your head out the back, as does Blossom and Jack, to kind of take in your surroundings. And where Grimoire is kind of like, I want to say like typical fantasy town, where it has almost like a friendly neighborhood vibe to it, where there's like humble buildings, there's homes, there's businesses. Elder's Bane it almost seems to have like a very dark feeling to it. It's not necessarily like scary or bad feeling. It just seems as though everything here is almost shrouded in a little bit of secret. A lot of the buildings are, the residential part of town seems to be a little less than ideal. It seems as though it's a bunch of clusters of like shacks and houses, and they're not really like evenly distributed. It seems like there are a few buildings that are tall, that are linked together with like ladders and bridges, and there's lanterns kind of lit up everywhere. As you all arrive into town. It's definitely getting kind of late into the evening, not quite night, but the sun is setting at this point. As you pull into there on the final day. And you guys are led further into town towards what is basically their equivalent of the town center, the town square. It is not so much what Grimoire had, which is basically like a fountain with a big plaza and a bunch of businesses around the edge. It's more so of like a grassy knoll. And there's not really a paved path around here. It almost seems as though you're setting up in like on like a small hill, and around this hill you can see off in the distance there is a very tall, imposing tower, but it doesn't quite reach over the edges of this wall that surrounds the city. You can also kind of figure that one of the reasons it feels so dark here is that because the walls surrounding the city are so tall, the sun is not visible for as much time during the day. So as it's setting already, the only thing that's really illuminating the city is like the glow of the sky, not the sun itself. Um, so there's a really tall tower. You can see off to in a different direction. You see this massive university-esque building. It looks like how you would picture like a college campus, where there's just large pillared buildings all surrounding this kind of quad-esque clearing, and you can see it's like bustling with younger people that are all like gathering around. There seems to be a couple of them that are kind of loitering outside, but this is more so like, imagine, I don't know if your town ever had them, but like my town always had like a fair that would come into town, and it would just pick like this patch of grass that was in town and set up the fair on that patch of grass. That's kind of where where the market for Gaelia is being set up. It's kind of in this like patch of grass that is located behind this like public center as opposed to a plaza. Because there doesn't seem to be an ordinary setup of buildings. For business-wise, I want you to picture almost like Diagon Alley-esque, where all of these alleys are like, all of the streets are almost like, they're very, very narrow. They're not really travel. You can't really travel down them via cart. Very much a town where you have to get around on foot, or you have to fly, or you have to find some other means of transportation, because there's not really a lot of room for people to travel by vehicle around here. And you guys settle in the caravan and set it. Blossom kind of kicks the blocks back behind the wheels, and you guys settle in for the night. Upon waking up the next morning, Jack kind of stirs you from your sleep, and you kind of realize that around you, Blossom and surprisingly Belle are already awake and are starting to take out packages from the caravan that you have all been just kind of surrounded by this whole time. And Jack, as he like shakes Jez awake, is like, Jez, I'm going to help the others set up a little bit. But there should be merchants from town already set up, as well as the shopping district, which is just a little bit that way. You're welcome to kind of explore if you want to while I'm setting up, because I have to go to temple right after I help Belle, with Belle and Blossom. So maybe we can meet up a little bit later, and you can kind of, you know, acquaint yourself with Eldersbane since you've never been before. I can assure you, you're not at any risk wandering around by yourself. It's quite safe here. Just be smart about how you deal with the merchants here. They tend to be quite pretentious when it comes to selling magic items to outsiders who are not from Elder Spain. So don't let yourself get swindled into spending an exorbitant amount on something. That is my best advice to you. It's not exactly the same as... if you go to the shopping district, it doesn't follow the rules of the market. You can use coins and such to purchase things. There's only a few merchants that typically set up from Elder's Bane to actually trade, considering a lot of the stuff from here is a lot more valuable than, frankly, what Haven and Oromir and Grimoire have to offer. Just because of the nature of it. But you are welcome to shop under normal means as much as you'd like, or just kind of explore and look around and meet some of the locals here. I'm sure they'd be very excited to talk to you, and you can learn a little bit more about magic here and how it works.
If you're sure you don't need the help, then I will take you up on that.
3 of us are plenty to set up shop here. It's essentially a very small tea business, so we'll probably be spending most of our time at Temple, and the first day of Temple is not open to the public, and it's also very boring, so I don't want to have to drag you to that. The bread of God is bread.
This is all I'm gonna think that Jack does now when he goes to Temple. Good job, Emily.
Yeah, it's just all of John Mulaney's bits about being in church.
Yeah. Then, I'll head out. Be safe. If you need me, call me.
Will do. I'll see you later tonight. Come back for dinner, because...
Yeah. I wouldn't miss it for the world.
As you kind of make your way out, you notice that, you can kind of spot Owl and his family's setup. And you kind of wave and he waves back to you, but he seems to be busy setting up. So you make your way out of where this market is resetting itself up, and you have free reign of Elder's Bane. So what kind of exploring would you like to do? Would you like to go to the shopping district? Would you like to maybe wander down to where you saw all those younger folk kind of frantically hurrying around, carrying like their textbooks and their instruments and stuff like that?
I am not a nerd, Emily.
Debatable, Natic. There are a few other locations in town that you notice that are seem to be not quite like places of business, but they seem to be like they're not residential places, they're community places. So you would assume maybe like a library, a bank, like some generic public entities that every place needs.
Yield money changers.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure they were still just called banks.
Hey.
There's like a doctor's office, an aka an apothecary. And like I said, there is like the shopping district is very Diagon Alley-esque, and then in the distance you can see that really tall tower. Where is Wizard Hut?
Gosh, I kind of just want to like wander through the. I don't know. I'm kind of interested in the shopping district. So the thing is that we haven't talked very much about what exactly Jez needs to complete their Frankensteinian journey. So I will admit to being a little bit unsure of the kind of like things that Jez would be on the lookout for in that sense, and
yeah, so to be a little vague about exactly what we're talking about, just for the sake of being vague about it, think about what they are trying to accomplish, like their end goal, which we've established together, and what kind of magic that would require, what kind of things you need to make a Frankensteinian-esque thing, like very specifically, like, sorry, I don't know, my allergies are like acting up, my nose is so itchy. The magic that you need is like a very good place to start, because like necromancy is probably the school of magic that Jez needs.
yes.
Jez, like as a druid, as far as I know, from your list of spells, you don't really have a lot of necromancy spells. If any, I think you have like one, right? And that's like the resurrect spell.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So maybe looking into what this would be like Nocturne Alley esque, not saying that that's what these are canonically, but like maybe not going into like a potion shop. Like you don't want to walk into some place that is similar to what Elin does, which is sell scrolls and potions and little trinkets and stuff like that. Jez wants to look for, like, this is the first time Jez has been in a place where almost every public store here is selling some kind of magical means. So there's like a wand store, there is a place that like enchants armor and weaponry, there is a place that is selling familiars, there is a place that is selling spell books and other types of magical like literature, quote unquote. There's just a lot of different kinds of shops that are offering a magnitude of magical items that Jez has never had the opportunity, since they came to Althane at least, to really get their hands on. And now, like, previously, assumedly while Jez was traveling, they weren't exactly rolling in it, so it probably was very difficult for them to acquire magical things in the past. Because magical things tend to be fairly pricey if there's something that is significant. So now that Jez A has money and B is in a place that very much has like things that could potentially help them, I would say that they should look for like either like components or books, or even like talking to someone who might be able to help them find what they are looking for. Like they could walk into the first shop that they come across and be like, hey, where do I start looking if I want to do this thing?
Okay. They're doing a lot of like window shopping, looking like a child who's just been given free reign of a toy store.
Kid in a candy shop.
Yeah. Because you're absolutely right. This is a lot of magic.
It is.
Yeah, so they probably like roll into a couple of like I'm trying to find the word for it. They're like those shops that kind of sell like, oh my god, what are they called? that are just like
Compound.
you got like component stuff and like they've got magic like books. God, I literally am struggling so hard right now.
It's okay.
Which is about what Jez is probably doing, just like it's fine.
So do they kind of wander into like one of the shops that just kind of sells like basic necessities for like almost like a beginner with magic?
Probably.
Okay.
Just for lack of a better place to start.
Yeah, that's fine. So like honestly, that kind of place would be like Elin shop-esque, where it's like something that is not really unfamiliar to Jez, but that's a nice place for them to start. So, you walk into the shop and there's a little jingle as you enter, and this is a relatively, like, clean and organized shop. There doesn't seem to be, like, some of these places are just definitely a person is hoarding as much of their stuff as they can, and it's, like, piled up on the walls, there's, like, tables scattered everywhere, like, there are definitely different feels to a lot of these stores.
Yeah.
But this one in particular seems to be pretty standard, pretty well kept. And there is a male half-orc kind of manning the counter. And he looks up as you walk in and smiles at you, his two bottom tusks sticking out prominently from his bottom lip as he greets you wearing his store apron. Welcome. If you need any help, just let me know. You're free to browse the wares as much as you need to. I'll be here if you need anything. Have a nice look around.
Thank you. The books are on the over there?
Oh yeah, we have a few beginner books right in the corner.
Perfect. Thank you.
Certainly. Are you looking for anything in particular?
Just looking for at the moment.
Okay, let me know. And he goes back to, you notice that he was actually reading a book on the counter, and he goes back to kind of flipping through it.
Perfect.
While you browse, walks into a store and is like, do you have any books on necromancy?
I'm not gonna... No, we're not gonna say that, Emily.
I know. But it'd be good.
That would have been funny. And I very quickly would have found myself back in jail. Anyway. Yeah.
What you looking for?
I don't know, Emily. Maybe a couple of books that are talking about, like... No, not like necromancy, but certainly like... there's gotta be a...
Make an investigation.
There's gotta be like a legal form of like necromancy, which is like a weird thing to say, but maybe...
Google's necromancy, but acceptable.
I'm thinking like...
I spelled necromancy wrong.
Wow, Emily, disappointed.
I don't know how I spelled it wrong. I don't know what it changed.
Not I guess homunculi? Let me try that word again. Homunculi type thing would be closer, or like we were watching Full Metal last night, and all I'm coming up with is automail type things, like, you know.
Yeah, like something that can be bound.
Yeah, to function, like something that's not organic to function as something that is. So something like that, maybe?
Make an investigation check.
Okay. We're gonna roll the other dice, actually, that I have for chess, and hopefully not a crit fail again. Not You said investigation?
Yeah.
Not great. 9?
9?
Not great.
9. Okay.
We're not doing. That's fine.
So Jez, you start to kind of peruse the shelves of books. This book section isn't exceptionally like extensive or anything like that. It seems to be a lot of beginners books, almost like a like for dummies section of the store. This store doesn't particularly seem to have, like I said, it's very standard magic stuff. So as you're kind of looking through the titles, they all seem to be either textbooks or introduction books as to what magic is and how magic is used, and like what the different kinds of magic are. So you do find one book that does seem to talk about like dark magic and necromancy, but it's an educational type book. It's not really like how to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there is that one book on necromancy, but other than that, you can't really see anything along the lines of what you were really looking for.
Okay. Just probably like petters around the rest of the store. Maybe like buys a couple of smaller items for, you know, components that they usually carry anyway. Leaves and oil and rocks. Finds a really nice like pink colored rock. You know, just like innocuous things.
Yeah.
And returns to the counter to our lovely half-orc shop owner.
Oh, do you find everything you were looking for?
I think for the moment, yes. You wouldn't happen to know where there might be a more dedicated bookstore for magic?
Well, there are a few other places that sell magic books. There's also the library in town for more public. There is how dedicated, like, what kind of books are you looking for?
Well, you see, I'm trying to... a little bit of a mix. I had a friend who got a pretty nasty injury and has subsequently lost an arm. I'm trying to... He's a little bit out of my realm of normal magic, but I'm trying to create them a replacement.
That's terrible. I'm sorry to hear about your friend. But that's very nice of you to, I guess try to regrow them a limb. Or replace it. What was there something else?
No?
Okay.
Just that.
Well, that's tricky. Limb regrowth isn't typically... You won't find that in your average book. There is another place, but I don't know how trustworthy he is. Yeah, I would try. There's a store a bit down the block. You'll see it. It has like a red brick exterior, and there's a book hanging from the sign. They might have something you're looking for. They do sell a lot of books, and a couple other things, but they definitely have a wider selection than I do.
And this person is not trustworthy?
No, that's someone else. But I don't think I could recommend you him in my good conscience if I'm honest. Plus, I think he might be busy because of the festival that's in town. He might be setting up something. It's don't mind me. I'm just rambling, thinking out loud. I'd try that bookstore I recommended to you.
But now you made me curious.
Uh, d- sorry. Did you? Should I also check out? Are you checking out with these few things?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not gonna rob such a nice person of their things, please. What do you take me
no,
for?
I wasn't. I wasn't accusing you. I was just making sure this is everything, so I could start, calculating how much it's gonna be. It comes out to like 5 GP or something. It's not a lot.
Okay.
Because it's just standard components.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't worry about what I was saying earlier. It's you're not from around here, are you?
No, I am in with a friend visiting for the festival.
That's what I thought. Yeah, you don't wanna. It's not even a really nice part of town, so you might want to stay just in this area and go down the street to that store I mentioned. She's lovely. She'll take care of you there. Maybe she'll be able to help you with something.
Alright. I trust your I trust your judgment.
Well, thank you. That's nice of you. Thank you for your business here or your things. He's put them in like a little, like, brown, like, sack lunch type thing.
Yes. Paper bags.
Yeah. And it's got like the nice logo of the store on it and stuff like that. He's like, I hope you find what you're looking for while you're in town. I'm sorry I couldn't be of more help.
Oh no, it's fine. It was. It is a weird conundrum to begin with. It's quite alright. Thank you. And takes the bag.
Yeah, sure, enjoy the festival.
Is there a proper happy, joyful Gaelia?
Happy Gaelia.
Yeah. Happy, peaceful, joyful.
The joyful Gaelia. So you exit the store, and do you start to? As you exit, you actually notice that. Let's say you were in that store for about like maybe an hour at the most.
Yeah.
An hour and a half. Let's say like an hour and a half actually. So that's given the time a little bit, enough time to like wake up and start realizing like people are already preparing, but there are definitely more people out and about who are preparing for the festival. They're hanging decorations, or people walking up and down the street now. You can kind of see, since you kind of wandered into one of the first stores you came across, you can still kind of see in the distance where all the caravans are set up, and it seems as if like they've pretty quickly assembled this market that you saw them assemble at Grimoire. Although it's a little bit bigger because obviously some of the Grimoire merchants came with you, and other merchants have assembled their own tents that are from Elder's Bane, the few that have chosen to participate. So it's actually kind of bustling when you exit the store, and you get bumped a few times by people who are trying to make it past you. They apologize and quickly move on their way. It's not like a New York situation, but no offense to people from New York. As you kind of look around, you're trying to you're not particularly tall,
Nope.
So you are struggling to see kind of past this crowd of people to find the building that the store owner was directing you to. When you suddenly feel almost like it almost feels like something hits you and you stumble a little, looking around to see who had bumped into you.
Mm.
And you don't really see anyone directly near you. It doesn't seem as if anyone has acknowledged you or hit you, and you feel another chill run down your spine. And as you do so, it almost, you know, when someone is looking at you and you can feel it.
Yes. Yes, I do.
Jez, as Jez experiences this chill, they feel this like piercing sensation that instinctually makes them turn to the right,
Mm-hmm.
and they see amongst this crowd of moving people, there is a figure standing a little bit taller than Jez, in a blue cloak, and their features are unidentifiable. You can't really see who it is or what kind of facial features they have.
Mm-hmm.
And this cloak that they're wearing is covering up any kind of recognizable clothing that they might be wearing. But you can tell they're staring at you because their eyes are almost glowing this icy blue color at you. As Jez makes eye contact with this figure,
Mm-hmm.
they, you kind of, as you look at them, it almost feels familiar. And you realize that it's a very similar sensation to how you felt when you first met Minori. To remind you, Minori was the kitsune. Yeah. That Jez encountered previously at the festival.
Mm.
But as you make this eye contact, the hooded figure turns and starts to weave their way through the crowd. It's almost like nobody else is acknowledging this person who is walking through them. And Jez feels a slight pull, almost like a compulsion to follow after them.
Just like takes a look around, you know, and then follows after.
Okay. So have quite as easy of a time maneuvering through this crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, but thankfully this figure is wearing a recognizable enough cloak that you can kind of keep track of them
Mm-hmm.
as they move. And despite of bumping into a few people and a few people who also are kind of, you hear a few people comment on seeing you as you stick out just a bit amongst all of the kind of darker hues of this town in general, that is also reflected onto the residents of this town.
What, you're saying being white enough to reflect the sun is not normal?
I'd say being that pale and also wearing entirely like grays and whites and stuff like that accentuates just how pale Jez is. I keep thinking back to reading about the people of Sassel and like how the humans from there look like they're made of snow because they're so white.
Yeah.
So now I'm just imagining that, but like it's Jez and they're in this town of like fairly muted tone people. So Jez makes her way through this crowd and very quickly suddenly feels like that impact again, and they lose sight of this figure, and what they find themselves standing in front of is there are less people walking here.
Mm-hmm.
Which you didn't quite realize until you kind of stopped, like you were almost following this person by instinct. Like
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't, you weren't quite conscious of where you were going or what you were doing. You were just following that pull.
Mm-hmm.
So when you feel that impact again, it kind of snaps you back to reality, and there are not as many people around you. And you realize that you have definitely wandered away from that main shopping street that many people were rushing down. And you're kind of around that area of town where I said it was like a lot of shacks, a lot of kind of lopsided buildings, things that looked like they were kind of thrown together. And you were standing in front of what can only be described as a bunch of black, like dark navy and black tarps that have just been thrown together to make what is vaguely representative of a tent.
Nice.
So it's like a fairly big tent. It's not. It looks like there is definitely some room in this tent. I keep making references to Harry Potter, which I don't mean to do, because Elder Spade isn't like a Harry Potter world, but like, think of like how in Harry Potter they had tents that looked like a tent, and then you went inside and it was like bigger.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of looks like it could be something along that lines, where it looks really haphazard and not very big, but there is a sign outside that says Buckram's Books. And you are very quickly acquainted with the owner of said tent as a short figure, shorter than you, much shorter than you, probably around the size of Peter, if anyone, appears in a dark cloak. His hood is not up though, so you quickly recognize this to be a goblin.
Nice.
He kind of looks up at you and he's like, what is that? What's that? And then he looks up at you with these big, buggy yellow eyes. And he goes, a customer! Come in! And he doesn't even let Jez like refuse and like gets behind their leg and starts like hurrying them into the tent. He's like, come in, customer!
Okay. Yeah. This is
just like, okay. So Jez is hurried. Jez has to, like, even at Jez's height, they have to like duck a little to kind of get into this tent. But as they kind of pass through this little like entryway type area of tarps, they reach what is definitely the body of the tent, and it is, as I said, like a lot bigger than it seemed from the outside.
Mm-hmm.
And it has to be because every like free space in this tent is just stacked high with books. It's kind of interesting because intermittently, like spread amongst these stacks of books, you just see like pots of like jewelry, and there's like random bits of what just looks to be like shiny tinsel or something like hanging from the ceiling. There's like broken pieces of like lamps that are just like a little bit iridescent, that are just kind of like gathering in like bowls and dishes of like randomly scattered about this place. There's like a goblet that is clearly has a hole in it, but it's there. And like you don't realize really where he's rushing you to until he climbs up on this pile of books and sits behind it like it's a desk. And he's like, well, welcome, customer, to Buckram's Books. I am Buckram. What can I help you with? And you he's like addressing you, but you can't, he's not really looking at you because his eyes are so buggy, they kind of look like they're going in two different directions.
I love him. See, wow, I am looking for books about...
Books? You've come to the right place. You've come to the right place.
I can
looking
tell.
for books. I have books.
I can tell. You
I
have...
have lots of kind of books.
Lots of kind of books.
Very.
And probably gives like a similar bullshit, but somewhat reasonable explanation about regrowing a limb and something like that.
Oh, limb regrowth. Hey, that is a very interesting part of magic. You are looking for necromancy, yes? I will look for something like this. and he starts just like sifting through, like he like hops down, and you literally like lose sight of him in like the ocean of books that he has in this tent, and you just every once in a while you see like a stack like fall or like shift, and you see him kind of like you see like a glimpse of him like scurry up this like stack of books, and then he disappears into like another little like nook.
Oh, a man after my own heart.
Truly living your dream life. OTP Jez and Buckram the Goblin.
I see you, Em. You're valid. I appreciate it.
He comes, and then like after a few, actually it's a pretty decent amount of time, like not a super long time, but it takes him a while to kind of gather everything, and he comes back and he's kind of like tripping over himself as he plops down this stack of books next to you, and starts kind of leafing through them. He goes, well, let's see, this here, this is kind of similar. It's not quite regrowing a limb, but if you need to, well, this will help you resurrect the dead. Is that something you're interested in?
I will read anything and everything that is similar. I'm kind of starting this pet project.
Oh, that is one book then. I will put that right here in your pile of things that you're buying. Thank you. Let's see. Well, this doesn't really... This talks about limbs, but it's not really regrowing a limb so much as turning... It'll teach you how to turn your skin into something else, like a stone or wood or a liquid. Is that something that you'd be interested in?
I don't know my spells well enough, but I think I might already know how to do that. No, this is... I'm gonna roll with it.
No.
This is something I already know.
Okay. So you are a magic user yourself. That makes sense. You are not from around here, right? I have never seen your face, and I think I would have recognized your face before, unless you've never come into this area before, which is what a lot of people do. Avoid this area in general.
I couldn't know why. This seems like a very lovely store.
It is! I'm so glad that you can see the potential. All right. Well, I'll put this one in the maybe pile for you. It's okay. He just...
Love him so much.
Gosh, let's see. Okay. Wait! I have something you might be very interested in. He kind of scurries off, and you just see like an entire... you see him go, all right. You hear him go, all right, 3, 2, 1, and then you just see this stack of books like jump for a second and then land on itself as he yanks a book out from underneath it.
Impressive.
And it like wobbles there and teeters, and you can see if this stack of books falls, it will take down at least like 3 other stacks with it. But thankfully it doesn't seem to shift enough, and it stays upright. And he scurries back to you and he goes, come here.
Yes?
Come here.
Yes?
Aiden, this is a very rare piece of literature. I would not show most people this piece of literature, but I like you, and you're already buying 2 of my books, so this is for you, especially.
What is it? I don't know, tell me what it is.
He is holding what it is a pretty decent sized book. Like it's the size of what you think of like a dictionary or something would have. But as you lean in to like listen to what he's whispering to you, there's almost like a slight odor to the book. And as you kind of look down on it,
Is it bound in human skin?
It is bound in something that is very reminiscent of flesh.
Nice.
It has clearly been like tanned and like a leather would be, so it is like it's not actively rotting or anything like that, but it has a very distinct like
nice
smell to it. He says, this. Now, I don't know how much it will help you with limb regrowth per se, so it's not quite what you're looking for, but say you wanted to find a way to give your friend an entire new body. Well, this here, this is a manual that will teach you how to make a flesh column.
This is
A manual of flesh columns, yes. See, it says it right there on the cover.
I was going to say perfect,
Oh,
but
yes. It is that as well.
you are a very astute man. I will
Thank you.
definitely
I
be
am
taking this.
known for being a very smart goblin. You are going to take it?
Yes.
That is wonderful. I will add it with your other 2 costs. So with these other 2 books, that is going to be... That one is going to be... I'll give you a discount for this one because it wasn't exactly what you wanted, but you're buying it anyway, so that's very nice. Thank you very much.
This is the maybe book.
So with these, yes, it's the maybe book. As I said, he just put it on the pile of things that he said you would be buying. Like, he didn't even put it in a maybe pile.
I'll just pawn it off to Marin, it's fine.
That'll be about... Carry that. It's going to be 56,000 GP.
Hold on. Don't have that. Unfortunately, I find myself a little short on this right now. Is there some way we can work for trade?
This isn't them. I know that the festival is in town right now, but I cannot trade unless you have something of equal value. And well, these 2 books that I already gave you a discount on the maybe book, so that together with the other book was 1,000 GP, and this book, the manual that I've told you about, this is 50,000 GP. That is a lot. This is a very rare book.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can trade. I can trade you for the other 2 books if you would like.
I want that book.
Perhaps we can make some kind of arrangement so that maybe in the future you can come back and get it, or I can ship it to you. I will mail it with the Pony Express. But I have to have some kind of means to believe that you will come back and purchase it from me when you have the means to. Do you have something to offer me as collateral, and I will reserve it for you?
Let me... do I? Don't.
Now, the collateral does not have to be of equal value. It just has to be of some value to you. And you also have to purchase the other 2 books.
Oh, of course, I will definitely purchase...
Good. I'm glad.
These... God. What do I want to give this goblin man?
It will be very safe, I promise. It will be returned to you upon your purchase, but I will keep it in one of my cabinets where I keep my precious valuables. There's a distinct pause between the word precious and valuables. And he kind of touches one of the hutches that he has where there's just like random shit, like jewelry and stuff that he's kept.
Well... I'm not sure how I feel about giving this up, but Jess pulls out the wooden fish from the fishing game.
Oh my god!
This was given to me by a very, very close friend of mine, and I don't... You promised you will take very good care of it.
I do. So this has sentimental value, not monetary value.
He seems unimpressed by it because it's not shiny in any kind of way.
Yeah, that's fine. It
This
is...
your sword?
Yes, this is from the friend that I am trying to help.
Oh, your friend that is missing a limb. Very sad. That explains why it is so plain. Well, I suppose I can hold on to this for now. With the purchase of your books, then I trust you. We just met, but I trust you.
Of course, Here, you said it was what for the other 2 books? So,
It's 1,000 GP.
yeah, it's fine. We'll do
Okay.
that.
Okay.
We'll
You'll
roll
get
with that.
some like it'll help you kind of gain some of the knowledge about like how necromancy, not only like how necromancy is able to like basically produce matter in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
But also like it will talk about like some rituals that people do to like it definitely actually has some information on how to perform necromancy. But it's definitely not as specific as this other book that he has introduced.
Yeah.
So he takes the manual, the fleshy manual of flesh columns back, and he places the fish on it and locks it up in a cabinet. He goes, "See, this is where I will keep it for everyone to admire and not take. It is yours. I have marked it with your fish." Does the fish have a name?
The fish is named Penelope.
Penelope. That's a very good name for fish.
Thank you.
1,000 GP, that is what you owe me for these 2 books. I will put them in a bag for you.
And he gets like a potato sack and puts them in.
God, I love him. Thank you, and I have 1,000 GP for him.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, my document is not letting me add it, so I'm keeping a running tally in my head. What?
This friend of yours.
This friend of
mine. Before you exit my store, I have one more question for you. This friend of yours, is he also, or she, or they? I don't know what your friend is, but are they also magic user?
Sorry, run that by me again. You cut out a little bit.
Perhaps a wizard? Your friends, do you know one?
I do know a wizard. This is not the friend.
Perfect.
1 second. And he scrambles again to like find this book. He's like,
"You know I like you. That is why I bring this to you. This is one of my finest items. It is not as expensive as the flesh book. Don't worry, I would never do that, knowing that you do not have the money for that. However, this book, it's a very good book. But I cannot have it anymore. I don't want it in my store anymore. So I will give it to you for a very special price. It is nearly priceless, you know. This is a spell book from an ancient wizard. I forget his name, but I can assure you he was a very powerful wizard. You see, it's a little worn, it's a little old looking, there's some water damage to it, but it is priceless. However, I can give it to you for 500 GP. For your wizard friend, if you want to bring them back a souvenir. You see this spellbook that he has presented to you, and it says Book of Spells. Spells is spelled S-P-E-L-Z.
I think... this is a very good book.
It is a very good book, you're right.
But
And you are a very good person.
As are you, sir. But I think...
Thank you. I know, I am offering you this book for such a low price.
And this I appreciate, but I do not think I already have a gift for my friend. He is a very peculiar man. So I appreciate the offer, but
Alright, you pull my leg. 300 GP. That's 200 GP cheaper.
it is but this is why do you think my friend needs this book so much? This is
He is a wizard. He wants more spells, right? This is the only way that wizards can acquire spells, is they must copy it down from another spell book.
he has an extensive collection of books already. I don't actually know if that's true, but he has an extensive collection, and he is a very talented. Lots of books that I can't even read half of them. I do not think. I mean, maybe if I knew who this great wizard was that this book is written by, but I can definitely send him if he is ever in the area.
It is coming back to me. I suddenly remember the name. It was Dumbledore. Yes, Dumbledore, the great wizard. You know, he fought in the war.
There has not been a war here recently.
So this is a very old book.
Tell you what, I will tell my friend about this book, and should he require or desire it, I will send him your direction. Since, I mean, I already have to come back to pick up.
That's true. That's true. You know, I'll put it in a maybe pile. And he puts it with the Flesh Golem book in your fish.
You are very
if your
kind,
friend
sir.
is interested. Of course. This is how I treat my customers. You tell your friends to come back here and buy from Bakrim's books. Not any of those other bookstores in the front alley. They're boring. I have rare books. I have old books.
Indeed you do, sir. You have been a huge help, and they kind of like lift their little potato sack.
Alright, you have these potato sacks. You have given him 1,000 GP. And he seems to be, like, happily counting the GP and, like, just kind of, like, playing it with it almost.
I definitely overpaid this man, and I don't care.
He goes, well, it was very nice to meet you. I don't know your name.
I never gave it. It is perfectly alright. Do I... Sorry, this is me considering whether I want to actually have
No, you're good.
Jez lie about their name or not. You know what? Why the fuck not? We're living our best life here.
Do it.
It was a pleasure to meet you. Oh my god, I've forgotten his name already. Bakrin, thank you. It's like Bakugo. It was a pleasure to meet you, Bakrin. My name is Denai.
That is a very nice name.
Thank you, my mother did a good job with it.
It is very nice meeting you. Have a wonderful day if you are attending the festival.
I will endeavor to do this. I'm going to head back there now to meet up with one of my...
I look forward to seeing you again.
Very soon, I hope. And
Very soon, yes.
off we go.
Alright, and you depart from Buckram's books.
Yes.
Fun fact, Buckram is the word for a certain type of parchment that is used in the binding of books.
Thank you, Emily. I feel like I've learned something valuable today.
There you go. That's an easy way. That's just a little hint to help you remember the name Buckram. And it's literally Buck Ram. Like it's those two words smooshed together.
Interesting.
Anyway. So you exit Buckram's books after this encounter with this goblin man.
Purse much later, and lacking a fish.
Purse much later. Yep. My bread is so hard I can't eat it. As you kind of like wander back to town, there doesn't seem to be any indication of the figure that led you here or why they led you here. But it doesn't take you long before you kind of wander back to the main shopping district, and you quickly you hear your name being called. Jess. And Jack kind of waves to you from in front of one of the random stores or along the line, and he makes his way kind of through the crowd to you and goes, "Hey, we're all set up. If you want to come back for lunch, you can kind of, if you don't mind, you can kind of help us run the market for a bit. It's the first day, so it's really busy. We're gonna have lunch, and then we're gonna help Belle sell her tea now that we came back from temple. And tomorrow I was thinking maybe I could, before I have to readjust to my Jack accent. Before the dawn reckoning at night, I was wondering if you wanted to come to the public day of temple. I promise it's not as boring as the normal ceremonies or anything, and well, maybe you could, I don't know, pray to your deity or meet some other people or just see inside it. It's a very beautiful building. And since you are technically a follower of one of the divine, you're allowed in there. You'll be allowed in the main chapel."
That sounds delightful. Jack, I'd love to see what you've done to the place.
I mean, I haven't... I didn't help decorate it or anything. It's been standing much longer than I've been alive.
I'm sure you have added your own touch, friend. Come on.
Okay. To the temple or to
the tea shop.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the temple.
No, Jess is poking fun.
Gotcha. He goes, "Oh, you're talking about the... Well, you know, Belle's not as spry as she used to be, so I did do a lot of the decorating." And you guys return to Belle's cart, where you have a very nice homemade meal, courtesy of Al's family and a few other farmers from Oromir and also Haven fishermen that have prepared some really nice fish meals for the market. And then you guys face what is essentially the evening rush, where a bunch of people come to buy teas and herbal remedies. Belle and Blossom also sell like what is essentially like good luck charms and like little trinkets and incense and a bunch of other stuff that they have basically blessed. Jack even has a little section of perfumes that are vials that he has brought himself to sell. They're like little homemade perfumes and soaps that he has brought for him from his own inventory.
Perfect.
And that is how you spend your evening. You have another nice hearty dinner and you all go to bed. So, following the next day, you wake up fairly early as Jack stirs you, and he's like, Jess, I know it's a bit early, but temple is opening now. So if you would like to come with us, I think you'd really like it.
Let's go.
Okay.
Jess puts on like their nice robes. The nice robe that they got.
Yeah, the robe of the waterfall.
Yeah.
Okay.
Since it's not their normal like tunic and
Jack. You see Jack, who is like, before you leave, puts his hair back into braids, and he picks up his flower crown, and you notice that since it's Daisy's, and he's been wearing it for about like 6 days now, that they're not looking too hot when he first picks it up. But as he picks it up and puts it on his head, it seems almost as if his touch reinvigorates the flowers, and they bloom again as they land on his head.
Aw. Wow, powerful friend.
And he smiles and reaches his hand out for Jez to take as they walk to temple. So the 4 of you all walk to temple, and when you get to temple, you realize that it is not quite what you envisioned. It is a large ring of like pillared marble, and it has a dome-like structure over the top of it. So there is an outer wall that is just basically a pathway of marble that goes all the way around it with pillars. And then on the inside of the inner pillars, there is the actual building, and then there's this dome. Each, between like every other pillar, there are these beautiful, immaculate stained glass windows depicting various deities. There are the first 4 that come into view are the ones that you have learned or that you know to be the 4 seasonal deities of Althane. So those are the ones that are kind of universally worshipped by everyone in Althane, because they're not so much deities that have followings, but they represent specific times of the year. And then as they continue to go around, there's just various deities from all over the place. You also notice that there are different symbols kind of etched into the stone. This is definitely a place that, as soon as you kind of step foot onto the ground, you can tell that there is just a very powerful aura here. The only thing that is sticking out from the top of the dome is a large, heavy bell. And as you approach, that bell tolls loudly as the front doors of the temple are opened, and you can see into this temple for the first time. And as you look into it, you realize that this temple dips basically into the ground. So instead of it just being a flat surface or going up, it almost acts like a what is it called? Like an atrium type thing, where it goes down to a smaller platform, and where that smaller platform is, it's in the front of the, or I guess from where you're standing, it's in the back of the temple. There are, off to your side, there seems to be like a balcony viewing area, and then there is a small sort of archway where there is a kind of usher standing there, and that is the path that leads into this inner part of the temple, where you can sit at a pew and look down at this altar. This altar for the season of Gaelia has been decked out in like a cornucopia. There's a bunch of different offerings that seem to have been just left at this altar. You can tell that it's like from all different kinds of worshippers, because some of them are like produce, some of it seems to be like coins or jewelry or jewels. There's just all of this different type of offering to this altar that has been beautifully decorated in all types of fresh flowers and other like flora. And the inside of it is a pristine white. It's almost as the sun of the early rising sun filters in, now that it has peeked over the walls of Eldersbane, it has flooded this hall, and because it is so white, the colors of the stained glass windows seem to decorate it almost like jewels. And it seems to glimmer as you walk down it. Um, it is completely illuminated by natural light. And as you walk, you can hear your footsteps echo through the atrium, the acoustics echoing back the slightest sound that occurs. And you notice that there are a few other, there's a pretty decent amount of clerics gathered here right now. There is a very quiet murmur that is kind of echoing through this chamber as a few groups mutter to each other, but everyone is being relatively quiet and respectful as the other clerics who are not actively engaged in conversation seem to be kneeling and praying. You watch as Belle takes a small satchel out from her bag that she is carrying with her, and she hands it to Blossom, and she kind of looks at you and Jack, and she goes,
We'll return shortly. I am going to let Blossom leave our offering at the altar.
and Jack kind of nods quietly and with understanding, and looks at you, Jez, and leans in and goes,
You can leave an offering too if you want. Or I was just going to do my prayer to my goddess, which you're welcome to join me and sit nearby. You're welcome to do whatever you'd like while you're here. You don't have to worship necessarily, but if you're going to do it anywhere, this is honestly one of the best places to really reach your god. It's almost as if they're listening more intently to those who worship here. That was one of the few things that I really liked about it when I studied here.
And he kind of nods and starts to walk down one of the aisles to find a place to sit and pray. So what does Jez want to do? Does Jez want to leave an offering? Do they want to kind of sit somewhere more for themselves?
Yeah, I think they're gonna forego the offering for the moment.
Walks up there and just like leaves a dead squirrel and like walks away.
Yeah, we're not gonna do that. Probably finds like, oh god. I don't want to say no. We're gonna do it. Like, you know how in church you go, like people who are not really, maybe not there to be the most devoted person are always in like the back in the corner. Yeah, basically pulls one of those and is like further back where it's a little bit like emptier and like on one of the edges of one of the seats or whatever, or the ends of one of the seats. And like probably people watches for a moment, like not a moment, like a couple minutes before centering themselves to almost meditate, because they can't really do like a spread type thing, altar type thing here. Like pulls like some of the things that they pulled from their altar into, like palms some of that and has like that between their hands as they do this, and then just like yeah, just probably just meditates on that.
Okay. Are they so when you say they are like meditating and they are like fiddling with basically their own forms of like offerings and stuff like that kind of in their hands.
Mhm.
So are they uh making some kind of effort to like communicate with their entity, with their deity?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So is there anything are they saying a prayer, or are they just kind of like trying to reach out and see if they can like almost like grab their god's attention?
I think they're just reaching out. 'Cause I feel
Okay.
like they're one of those people. Like the whole thing is less because they're used to being, even though they've traveled south for now several years, they're used to being incredibly close because just with the nature of being from an area that is just constantly covered in ice and snow all the time.
Hmm.
Um, so there was always like this idea that there's less need to like pray, I guess, and more of like you can reach out to Oluchiu just because he's there. He exists in
Yeah.
every single aspect of their lives.
That's very like that's I like that because that's very like druid-esque to me, like as opposed to like obviously Jack was like you can pray or something because like that's what Jack is used to, like he's a
Yeah.
cleric. um but like I like the idea that the way Jez connects with their deity is by just like trying to like feel their presence and like connect to them through that presence.
Mm-hmm.
um so as Jez does this and settles into this meditative state, um they feel another jolt of a chill run down their spine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and uh, this is odd to you because honestly, Jez, like in all the years that you have been a part of this circle and you have been told that you have this connection to Alutiu, and like all those years that you spent meditating and making that connection to this feeling that you carried with it, there was never really a physical response. You never really felt an indication that Alutia was there. You just assumed that like that the feeling of almost centeredness that you feel when you meditate, you always thought that was kind of just how it manifests, is like you know that he's there, so being able to reach that state is enough to indicate to him that you are still connecting to him.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that you keep experiencing these weird chills is completely out of the ordinary for you. It's not something that typically happens when you try to meditate.
Mm-hmm.
So when this happens, it kind of, you expect almost to be thrown out of this state that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, for the first time ever in your life, you find yourself experiencing a vision. And this vision, it almost feels like deja vu,
Mm-hmm.
because Jez kind of, 1 second they are aware that they are sitting in this temple,
Mm-hmm.
surrounded by other holy beings and meditating by themselves as others have come here to worship. And the next second, you just feel this incredible, overwhelming sense of isolation. Um, and that chill runs down your spine, and you are jolted awake, but not awake. You are cold, you're freezing. And it's because you are sitting in what seems to be this just white expanse of snow. And it feels familiar because this is like where you grew up. Like this may not be the specific, you don't recognize anything here because there's nothing to recognize. It's just white snow. There's nothing to indicate where you are or what is nearby. And your senses are overwhelmed by this wind that is carrying the snow, that is just creating this white noise that is muffling everything around you. You can't even hear the whispers of the people who are in the chapel anymore, or the soft music that was echoing through the chambers. It is just this howling wind, and it seems to be getting louder and louder as Jez sits there in this white expanse. And as they kind of look around for anything recognizable, they see nothing but white in all directions. But that sound is getting louder and more overwhelming until it's almost deafening, and it all of a sudden it doesn't sound like wind anymore. It sounds like the howling of a wolf. And that howling gets so loud that Jez has to cower and cover their ears until suddenly it no longer sounds like that howling is all around them. It sounds like it's directly behind them. And as they turn and snap backwards to look at the source of this howl, they come face to face with the bright blue eyes of a white wolf. And then they are shaken out of this trance. You don't know how much time has passed in this period of time, but it's clear that it wasn't just a few seconds like it felt. This vision felt like it could have lasted no longer than maybe a minute.
Mm-hmm.
But as you kind of look around, there are different people that were here originally. Belle and Blossom are standing at the end of the row that you are, because Jack is standing right next to you and shaking your shoulder lightly. Jez, are you all right? You're shivering. Are you cold? And Jez, as you kind of like come to again and like kind of regain awareness of where you are and what you're doing and realize that you're back in that temple, you realize that your entire body is trembling. As soon as you become aware of that, though, you are able to stop.
Okay. Yeah, draft. It's fine. Have you been waiting long for me?
No, we finished up a little while ago, but I saw that you were back here meditating, so I didn't want to interrupt. It's only been like, well, we've been in temple for about an hour now, so it hasn't been too long. Because I also did my offering, and then Belle and Blossom did their prayers. It's wild though. You meditated right through the little sermon that the priest gave. But are you're sure you're okay? Just a draft? I have an extra cloak in my bag if you need it.
I think I'm okay. Thank you, Jack.
Okay. And he kind of like rubs your shoulder a little bit and stands up and goes, well, it's day 2, so we can all head back to the caravan and run the market until the dawn reckoning tonight. I'm really excited for you to see that. I think you're really going to like it.
I'm sure I will. You haven't been wrong about anything yet.
I know. And he
Jack,
leads
pretty
you.
and modest. Wow.
He leads you out of temple, and you're left with this feeling that something is staring at you, but if you turn around, there's nothing there.
I think probably like tucks away the things that they had originally and just is fiddling with their focus, which is like it's still around their neck. What it's always around their neck.
Yeah.
But just like continues to fiddle with it, and then every time they get called out on it, like stops and is like, oh no, it's just fine, it's fine, and then finds himself back again, like thumbing over like crystals and trying to figure out what the hell just happened.
At one point during the day, probably while you're having like dinner right before complete darkness settles over Elder's Bane, Jack kind of notices Jez fiddling with it as he kind of has throughout the day. And he doesn't really say much, but he pats Jez's shoulder and is like, I don't know exactly what's going on, but I hope everything's okay, and you can always talk to me if you need to.
I'm fine. If you weren't kidding about the whole stronger presence thing, it was just a little different than I'm used to.
Yeah, I understand it can be kind of overwhelming. I should have warned you, I'm sorry.
Think nothing of it.
So you guys finish up dinner, and then you guys make your way over to nearby to the temple. There is an actual kind of, it's not really a plaza. It's at the base of that really tall tower, which at the top of this tower there is a clock, but there's also you have learned, as Jack has kind of babbled to you about Elder's Bane as a town, you've learned that this is like the wizard tower, so this is where a lot of the higher powered wizards go to study magic or find a mentor to train them in magic. This is where the council, like the conclave that decides who learns what magic, it like gathers. So that is kind of where you're all gathered. Beneath, it is completely lit by torches, and there is a balcony not all the way up at the top of it, but kind of halfway up it, where a man with a long gray beard stands and kind of gestures out to the crowd beneath him, and he goes, "My dear citizens of Alphane, friends and family, we are gathered together today on this final night of Gaelia to begin the dawn reckoning that will guide our Lady Gaelia, back to our fine country, where she will watch over us for these upcoming cold months and help our crops blossom and flourish and bring us all the riches of life that the earth can offer. With these lanterns, we do create a path for her to guide her way back to Alphane. And we join together as brothers and sisters and friends, as a unified country, never again to let differences drive a divide between us. And you see a bunch of the people in this massive crowd that is gathered around you, and they are pulling out these paper lanterns, Give me 1 second. I have to pull something up. Not that one. Not that one. This one. Um, so you watch as he pulls out this like massive paper lantern, um, and lights a flame underneath it. And he seems to be demonstrating to everyone else. As he does this, Jack. Oops, I had to take that. Jack reaches, kind of nudges you and shows you a lantern that he has prepared for you. And you see Blossom and Belle with their own lanterns. And this wizard lights his enormous lantern and goes, "With these lanterns, not only do we guide our goddess here, but we release our wishes for happiness and life and the continuity of our thriving nation as a self-sufficient entity. Cast your wish up into the night sky and know that Gaia will hear it and smile down upon you with good fortune." And he releases his lantern up into the sky, and as he does so, you start to see flickers of light all around you, and Jack produces a small flame with his hand and lights his lantern and then offers to light yours as well. And you watch as hundreds of these lanterns start to lift up from the ground into the sky, completely filling the darkness with just brilliant light. It almost seems, as they float further away, they almost seem to fade into the stars of the night sky. And for once, Elder's Bane doesn't have that cold, dark feeling to it. It's filled with this warm glow of the light of these lanterns. And for a moment, you find yourself wondering if your friends are going to be able to see the trail of light coming out of Elder's Bane as these lanterns start to kind of float off into the night. And you see a bunch of people crying and cheering and celebrating and just coming together as this community to celebrate this wonderful occasion with all of their loved ones. And as you think about your friends back home in Grimoire, you also find yourself thinking about the family that you've left too far off and what they're doing right now. The winter is approaching, which is one of the hardest times in your village. And not only are you not there to help your family, you're not sure. It's been so long since you've been home that you're not sure what's left of it, if anything has changed. What wish does Jez send up with their lantern?
Wow, that's a very good question. I think It's a lot of I would guess just oh God, how do I word this? For the ability and the strength to protect the people that matter most near and far, I guess. Yeah, I think we're gonna run with that.
Okay. As you send your lantern up to join the hundreds of others that are lighting up the night sky, you feel that presence again, as if you're being watched. And a cool breeze from seemingly nowhere seems to kind of blow across your cheek. But it's not as jolting as the chills that you've been receiving are. It almost, after all this time you've been trying to reach out and contact your deity, and for the first time you're thinking maybe ever he is reaching back.
Nice.
So you all kind of watch the lanterns float off until they are no more than glints on the horizon. And Jack kind of, there is a lovely band of bards that is playing some celebratory music. It's not quite the crazy upbeat festival music. It's more of a nice ballad. And Jack kind of dances with Jez a little bit, just twirling them and swaying with them and just having like a nice time as friends. And Jack, as the two of you kind of sway together, he smiles at you and goes, "Thank you for coming with me. I know things have been troubling lately, and this is far from home. And you're a bit out of your element, but it means a lot to me, and I'm very grateful that you're my friend, Jez."
The feeling is entirely mutual, Jack. You have been
Good.
a rock in a lot of troubling times. I'm glad I could support you in this.
I'm glad I can be there for you, Jez. I'll always be here for you. And he hugs you tightly. As the music kind of comes to a close and the lights flicker out and you begin to watch as the crowd disperses, going back to their caravans. This is running really long and I apologize. I have one more thing.
It's okay.
I am going to... There's 10 seconds of the song left, so we'll just let it play out. Yeah, you all tuck in for the night. You take a moment to help Belle and Blossom kind of pack up most of their stuff from the market.
Yeah.
They seem to have been pretty successful, considering they didn't have like it's as though their products were actually pretty popular in Elder's Bane because obviously holy symbols and like luck symbols and anything like that are as well as incense and tea is like they're all things that are typically used in magic practices or temples or altars, stuff like that could be used by people in Elder's Bane.
Yeah.
So they actually had a pretty successful time. And what the hell? Oh. Sorry, my alarm went off telling me to go to bed. Not yet. I have to do this one last part of Jez's arc. I can't believe we're running longer than Marin's.
Sorry.
Although I did have a whole extra page, so understandable. So, you guys head out. And as Jez sleeps, so Belle is from Oromir, so they are just taking you home on their caravan. Belle and Blossom are. And so you are fast asleep in the back of their caravan as they ride out into the night. And as you fall asleep, you have another dream. This dream is very similar to your vision as you wake up in this same kind of white expanse of snow. There's no indication of any kind of forest near you or town. It's just endless white snow. And all around you, the sky is so gray, it just kind of drifts until it's beyond your plane of vision. You can't see past it. Except this time, it's not, there's no blizzard, there's no wicked wind attacking you. There's no loud sound. You are sitting in a completely standstill white clearing with this white wolf sitting directly in front of you as if it was waiting for you to wake up.
Jez probably... They're, like, sitting, right? In the snow?
What's that?
They're sitting in the snow?
Yeah, they were lying down. They just sat up to see the wolf.
Probably, yeah, sits up and... Oh, God.
As Jez sits up, the wolf kind of, looks up, acknowledging the fact that Jez is awake.
Yeah. Probably oh my god, it would look so weird sitting to, bow, but, does,
Okay. Kind of like a Dogeza type.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is the word for that? I have a lack of vocabulary and it's becoming very, very obvious.
The wolf, blinks its blue eyes and opens its mouth and speaks. But at first, the language that comes out of the wolf's mouth is, you don't know what it is. It's not like growling or barking or anything like that, but it does have a certain guttural tone to it. It sounds like it's coming out of the mouth of an animal. And at first, Jez, that's what it sounds like to you. It's not discernible, but after a few moments of this wolf speaking, it's almost as if your brain is suddenly able to translate the sound that is being that it is hearing. And you hear a deep voice go, "Hello, lamb. You have strayed quite far from your flock." Can you understand me?
Indeed. I will admit to being a little bit surprised that
The wolf cuts you off and goes, "Answer me with your mind. I cannot understand the words you speak." So, like, you just, like, think what you're saying.
Cool, we do that.
Yeah, you don't need to, like, cast a message or anything like that. It's
Okay.
not that kind of thing.
Cool.
So what were you can continue saying what you were saying.
No, you're good. I hear you. Oh my god. I already feel weird, and I haven't even actually said what I was going to say. I hear you, Lord. It's odd seeing you here, I will admit. But it is a different, maybe, experience to what I am used to from you.
Have you found what you are looking for?
I think I am in the right... I think I have found at least the starter resources. At the moment, the issue is monetary, to put it nicely. I'm getting there. There have been more steps forward than I have been able to take in several months.
I can offer you answers. I can guide you in returning what you so desire to your people.
Is this... I just want to show them that you are still here. Like...
Well, I'm afraid you are the first to have heard me in many, many moons.
Well, there always must be first. And from that, the rest of the world can follow.
The wolf stands up and begins pacing a circle around Jez. And it kind of, like, growls lowly, but not in a threatening way, in more of a, like, almost like a huff. He's walking very close to Jez as he paces. And you hear from behind your head, "You are special." And then he walks to the front of Jez and stares at them directly in the eyes. He goes, "You are my chosen."
I am proud beyond words that you think so. And this is a high honor.
I don't think so, little lamb. I know so, and I am telling you. I can offer you help in restoring me to my former self. But you need to cooperate if we are to do so. Are you willing? Go ahead.
Have I not been?
This is a step further than you are used to. I have a gift, and you need to accept it if you are to continue down this path that you so wish to tread. The wolf, as he mentions this gift, walks away from Jez, and as Jez like looks up, realizes that there is suddenly like a tree line like right in front of them. But you can't see into this tree line. Like the wolf walks into it, and it's like they disappear directly into this dark shadow. You begin to feel kind of this fuzziness return to your head, almost as if that wind has returned and is deafening you again. And as you feel this feeling, it's quickly cut off as the wolf returns. The tree line has disappeared again, and now the wolf stands in front of you, and the white of the snow in front of you is tainted as drops of red blood drip from this bone that it holds in its fleshy, bloody maw.
This is... This is the gift?
You hear in your mind again, take it and you will find out.
Yeah, they reach out and take that. Are we talking like
okay.
femur bone? Like long
yeah,
bone
it's like
type long bone? Or long
it's a
bone
pretty
type bone?
legitimate size bone. Like, it looks like the leg bone of an animal.
Okay.
The second Jez reaches out and touches this bone, they are filled with this, like, freezing shock, and, like, if they were to look at their arm, they would see this, like, blue race up their veins from this bone, and around them, the ground splinters open with ice fractals, and they wake up, clutching, clutching something in their hand, and completely completely isolated once again. Only this time they are laying in their bed in their room, and every single the bedspread around them and the walls are covered in just snow and ice. But it looks as if it's all radiated from the same point, and they've all radiated outward from Jez's body.
So wait, they're back at the court?
They're in their bed at the court.
Wild. That's not where I went to bed, right? Like, that's not where we fell asleep.
No, you're on the caravan.
Okay.
As Jez wakes up with this sensation, they are, they're still clutching something in their hand. And as you turn to look at it, it's no longer this bloodied bone that this wolf has offered you. Instead, in your hand, you are holding the bone hilt of a dagger. And this dagger is strange. It almost looks like a scythe, like a tiny, like what they use to cut grain and stuff like that. It's curved slightly like that. And the hilt of it is made of this bone that has all these markings carved into it. And the blade itself is almost transparent. It seems to be made of this glass-like ice, and you can tell it's ice because it radiates this cool fog, like what comes out when you open a refrigerator. But it there's no indication that it's melting. And you wake up clutching this dagger, surrounded by this ice, in your room at the court. And out of the corner of their eye, Jez notices a white light radiating from their wardrobe where they know their altar to be.
Like practically fall out of bed to go do that. Like look in the closet.
Okay. The second that they open this closet, they open their altar, and just a wave of blood pours out onto them, drenching them in. And it reeks. It smells like it's as if every animal that they've ever sacrificed to this deity has pooled its blood here, and it has just been poured onto Jez. And they're looking very Carrie-esque right now as they stand drenched from head to toe. The whiteness of their hair and their skin and their clothing completely dyed this scarlet color. And then they wake up again, and they're being shaken by Jack, who is looking at them with wide eyes of concern. They notice that as they kind of blink bleary-eyed, they notice that it's daylight outside the caravan.
Mm-hmm.
But Jack is shaking them and like muttering like, Jez, are you okay? And you quickly realize that you are violently shuddering, and this time you are so cold that your skin looks almost blue from how chilled you are. As you kind of move, as you realize this movement, bits of frost actually flake off some of your clothing. And Jack kind of shakes your head and seems to be covering you with a few quilts from the back of this caravan. Jez, are you all right? What is happening?
I don't think Jez like really responds. Jez is just like probably sitting there, like clutching, like moves to clutch the blankets that are being piled onto him, and looks a little bit like shell-shocked. And he's just muttering, like, what am I doing? What? Like, just absolutely probably doesn't even hear Jack. Just, oh my god, what have I done? What does it mean? I don't...
As you kind of mutter these, Jack kind of sits Jez up a little bit, just to make sure that they're not lying down, in case, like, you know, they are having, like, an episode or something. He sits them up and is like, Jez, please, I'll get you something, we'll get you something hot to drink. The second we get back to Grimoire, we'll get you to an apothecary, and we'll make sure that you're okay and this isn't some kind of illness that you're fighting off. And as he kind of mutters these things about like going to an apothecary and like checking to make sure that you're okay, Belle is sitting off to the side boiling water for tea, but is also kind of eyeing Jez very intently. Her dark green eyes are kind of narrowed, and she leans forward a little and mutters, "This is the work of something greater than disease." And she leans in really close to Jez and puts her paw, over the pulse of Jez's neck. not Jez's neck, Jez's wrist, pulse. And if you have kind of redirected your attention to Belle, who is now actively touching Jez, you watch as her eyebrows kind of shoot up and her eyes narrow into slits. And she leans in like really close to you and is like, "Who is it that you speak to when you pray, young druid?" And as she kind of like stares at Jez with this like intense gaze, Jack kind of like puts his hands between Belle and you and like pushes Belle back a little bit, gently, just to kind of give you some space, and is like, "Belle, not now. This isn't time for this. If Jez is sick, I don't want you getting sick either, and that's a really intrusive question. Jez is very secretive about their beliefs and doesn't like talking about it very publicly." And as Jack kind of pushes Belle away from Jez to give them space, Belle seems to like almost snap out of this intensity that she had a couple seconds ago, and her eyes widen again back to their kind of normal appearance, and she starts mumbling something about the long winter to come and what it's going to mean for Oromir. It's not really relevant to what she was just saying. And she goes back to brewing tea. Jack kind of sits next to you and is like rubbing your back. And Jez, as you kind of begin to recollect yourself and the shuddering dies down a little bit, out of the corner of your eye, you notice your bag has tipped over in the night. You must have hit it while you were having this nightmare that you just woke up from. And out of the mouth of the bag, you spy what appears to be the hilt that you saw of the dagger in your dream.
Is this within arm's reach?
Yeah, it's like right next to you.
Okay. That was a stupid question.
No, it's fine.
I probably like shove anything that's like tipped out, write it and put it back together, like.
Okay. So as you like shove this back together, you feel like the heavy clunk of this newfound weapon hit the bottom of your bag, reaffirming that it is indeed like this dagger that you have seen in your dream.
Yeah.
And Jack just kind of soothes you, and the rest of your ride back to Grimoire is uneventful. You don't have any more dreams the next few nights. But you do wake up shivering a lot. Not quite as badly as you did this time, but you just seem to kind of have this permanent chill whenever you fall asleep. And as you cross the threshold with the caravan back into Grimoire, you bid Belle and Blossom a goodbye, and Blossom gives you their address in Oromir so that you can write if you want to, or come visit their little like apothecary stop. And as they take off, you hear on your way back to the court, you hear a static sound, followed by Ace's voice coming through your necklace. And we're finally gonna stop there. It's like 11:30 at night. I'm so sorry. But that is Jez's arc come to a close.
That was a lot.
It was a lot. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Thank you, Emily.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope anyone who's listening to it enjoyed it. And I had fun. So I'm looking forward to doing Peter's next week.
Yeah.
Have a good night to our stream audience.
Good night.